I thank you both for co-organizing this timely event, and Portugal is honored to co-sponsor. Acknowledging and thanking the presence of our distinct panelists, I'm sure that this event will be a source of inspiration for our work in the coming years, and especially within the preparations of the 30th anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. In the last decade, many progresses have been achieved, and yet children continue to endure violence in many circumstances and in different geographies. In this context, let me welcome the launch of the report Keeping the Promise, Ending Violence Against Children by 2030, that hopefully will guide us and will remind us that children must be at the heart of our actions and at the heart of our discussions. The 2030 Agenda contains a specific target, 16.2, to end all forms of violence against children. You can count on us, my country, my government, and I'm sure on all countries today represented here around this table, to support you in your plans to help the implementation of this particular target, as well as in the development of the needed indicators to measure progress towards the achievement of the targets of special relevance for children. Thank you and wish you a fruitful discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Muito obrigado. We are now going to listen to another partner and good friend of the mandate from Morocco, representing the mission of Morocco, Ms. Madja Mucho. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and allow me at the outset to express the regret of my ambassador who could not make it to this event, clashing with another event by our minister. So I'm reading these statements on his behalf. I would like first to thank the permission of Bulgaria and the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children for organizing this event, which the Kingdom of Morocco co-sponsors and fully supports. Allow me also to extend the Office of the SRSG on Violence Against Children our sincere thanks for the valuable, noble and dedicated work it is doing. In this regard, we wish Mrs. Najat Maalamjid all the success in accomplishing her new mandate. This year is especially significant as it marks the 30th anniversary of the CRC, a unique opportunity not only to honor this milestone document, but also to take stock of progress made and consider how to move forward to reach those farthest behind. Great progress has been indeed registered in implementing the convention. However, there is still a lot to be done as millions of children around the world face discrimination, violence, poverty, hunger, wars, and armed conflicts. Violence compromises the human rights of children to have access to quality childhood development and enjoy safe, non-violent, inclusive, and effective learning environments. However, violence is not inevitable. It can be prevented and effectively eliminated, yet to do so, the protection of children from violence must evolve from being a concern of a few into a priority for all. In 1998, we all committed ourselves to protecting and ensuring children's rights. The CRC was the culmination of several decades of hard work to create a child-specific instrument. Since then, numerous international human rights instruments and related guidelines for the establishment of protective legal framework for children have been adopted. Today, the 30th anniversary of the adoption of CRC is certainly a cause for celebration as it has improved the lives of millions of children. Today, the 2030 Agenda, Leaving No One Behind, gives a powerful impetus towards the promotion and protection of the rights of all children. Today also, we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the optional protocol to the CRC on the communications procedure, which still needs worldwide ratification in order to ensure the realization of all human rights of children around the world. Today, the HLPF is reviewing a set of goals, all of which have a direct impact on the lives of children. As the president of the UNICEF Executive Board, the first engagement of my ambassador, Ambassador Omar Hilal, was to participate in the joint field visit to Colombia. Living the extremely positive experience in there and witnessing the vitality of UNICEF's work on the ground made him more determined to foster the mandate of UNICEF. Moreover, Ambassador Omar Hilal is happy to implement his mandate alongside with Mrs. Henrietta Fore, Executive Director of UNICEF, who gives the highest priority to creating a safe and respectful workplace culture throughout UNICEF, introducing commendable initiatives and policies, particularly the zero-tolerance policy on sexual harassment and abuse, discrimination and abuse of authority. Allow me to conclude by the following. Building a better future begins with children, through ensuring that they are healthy, educated, safe, and loved. When children's rights are respected, protected, and fulfilled, sustainability and human progress is made and secured for the generations to come. Children of today can grow up to realize their greatest potential as adults. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup for your important words and for reminding us that we are celebrating yet another milestone, the 5th anniversary of the optional protocol of the Convention on a Communications Procedure, and we also will celebrate later this year the 10th anniversary of the mandate and the 30th anniversary of the Convention. So everybody is invited to join, not only in the celebrations, but also in the organization of the party and making sure that everybody is present and everybody is trying to make sure that we implement this goal of ending violence against children by 2030, together, joining hands for this goal. So I'm very happy also to see the Deputy Representative of Chile, bienvenido, Mr. René Ruiz Díaz, to whom I pass the floor now.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, at the onset, I would like to thank warmly the Office of the Special Representative of Secretary General on Violence Against Children for convening this event on occasion of the high-level political forum. Chile has proudly co-sponsored this event. I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate Mrs. Nayat Malla Majid for her appointment as SRSG on violence against children, but also express our recognition to her predecessor, our dear friend Marta Santos Pais, for her strong leadership in this very noble cause. The way that countries take to implement and monitor the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is, of course, diverse. In the case of Chile, our challenges have involved a process of progressive steps in depth and scope in order to turn the agenda into a key roadmap for multi-stakeholder action. I would like to share a little bit of information about our policies and challenges regarding childhood and how to protect the rights of children and adolescents. In March 2018, in taking office, the President of the Republic decided to convene all public and social sectors of the country to integrate work tables to achieve 5 national agreements. One of them, the National Agreement for Children, seeks to put children and teenagers as a first priority in our public policies so that no child and adolescent be left behind. We do not want previous failures in the protection of children's rights in Chile ever happen again. In Chile, the proportion of children and adolescents living in poverty is 13.9 in 2017. This figure is higher than the observed in the total population that reaches 8.6%. This shows that one of the most vulnerable groups in the country are people under 18 years old. In this context, the National Accord for Children aims to promote the integral development of children of our country. It also creates mechanisms to act on time and thus prevent violations of the rights, and it seeks to protect those children and adolescents whose rights were violated, so that in this way they can resume a development trajectory that contributes to enhance their wellness. Just to end, for the sake of time, because we have very interesting panelists tonight, I would like to highlight that Chile joined the Alliance 8.7, invited by the ILO organization to fight, among others, child labor and to eradicate child labor. We are one of the pioneer countries in this initiative. We believe that by cooperating among many actors, we will be, and we need to be effective to address and combat this scourge. Thank you very much for the invitation again.
Thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce, it's not an introduction, it doesn't need an introduction, as been mentioned, Ms. Najat Malamjid, who is the recently appointed SRSG, Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children. And we are all very interested in listening from you. Short, but meaningful, please.
Thank you. Dear children, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, first of all, I want really to thank you warmly for joining us this evening to jointly recall the urgent need of putting children at the heart of the 2030 agenda. 4 years after the SDGs were adopted and 30 years after CRC was adopted, where are we? What was achieved? What are the remaining gaps and challenges? And what needs to be done? Keeping the promise, the reports that we are launching today, Ending Violence Against Children by 2030, this report is based on contribution from various stakeholders, UN, regional organizations, civil society, experts, high-level advocates, and children themselves. And some are present today, and I want really to warmly thank them for their contribution. 4 years after adoption of SDG and 30 years after adoption of CRC, despite some progress, violence against children remains hidden and undermines the achievement of the SDGs and full implementation of the 2030 agenda. 4 years after adoption of SDG and 30 years after adoption of CRC, still need to do more, better, and faster to ensure that no child is left behind and to put children at the heart of the 2030 agenda. Urgent need to strengthen and keep the momentum around ending violence against children and to address these key questions. What must we do to move better, faster, and further in bringing violence against children to an end? How we can better work together at global, regional, national, and local levels. How we can better mobilize, advocate, and monitor. How we can better empower children. What concrete and immediate actions and steps need to be taken. This evening, we will jointly underline the relevance and interconnectedness of the SDG target for children and the review at the high-level political forum, and the critical need to accelerate the implementation of Agenda 2030 to prevent and to respond to violence against children. Last week, at the opening of the high-level political forum 2019, I called on all of us to make sure that we keep children at the front and center of our discussion at the high-level political forum this week. With the government of Bulgaria as co-organizer and the government of Chile, Croatia, Indonesia, Morocco, Portugal, and Timor-Leste as co-sponsor, this evening we will remind ourselves of this imperative once more with support from all speakers today. I hope to make this a truly interactive session and not only speeches and statements. In our discussion and exchange, we will also remember that the SDG Summit in September must also keep children front and center, the 30th anniversary of the CRC in November, and lead to accelerated action in 2020 and beyond for the realization of the rights of every child to survival, development, and protection. As one of the child participants, courageously questioned us the other day, and you are here. Your question were, when are we starting our action? The time is now. In closing, I want to highlight what the Secretary General, who is unfortunately not able to be with us in person and send us good wishes, wrote in his powerful foreword to our new report, Keeping the Promise. The Secretary General stresses that violence against children is not inevitable. He emphasizes that by placing children at the heart of the 2030 agenda and at the center of all we do, we can realize its ambitious vision while leaving no child behind. Now, I would like to invite 4 children, Luis, Litebo, Nomorandi, and Roslinda, representing their peers in Chile, Indonesia, Lesotho, and Mongolia, to share their views with us. And if I understand well, Nomorandi will be facilitating this part. Please take the floor.
Thank you, and greetings to everyone who's in here. My name is Nondari, and I'm a young leader from Mongolia. I have my friends here. That is Roslinda. She's a young leader from Indonesia. She's 14 years old, just like me. Then we have Liteboho. She's a young leader from Lesotho. She's 17. Last but not least, we have Luis here, who's a young leader from Chile. I must say, we're all very happy and honored to be here. We're all here to represent our country and tell you our problems, meaning that we'll be talking about our issues and different topics. But remember, every problem, every topic that has been mentioned here is problem in each and every country. So now I'm going to be talking about climate change that affects children's rights. Okay. Everyone deserves to breathe in fresh air, especially children. Our lungs are not fully developed. Therefore, children breathe in far more air than adults do. So if you do not control air pollution sooner, we're going to breathe polluted air until we become adults. Children's immune system is also not fully developed, which leads to not being able to protect their body. That's why children are the main victim of the air pollution. In 2019, World Health Organization says Ulaanbaatar has air pollution for 338 days, and only 27 days are not polluted. In winter times, my younger sister and I catch cold at least 3 times. Sometimes it gets bad that my mom has to take absence from her work to take care of us in the hospital. We take pills and take many shots. This is one of the consequences of air pollution in Mongolia. My peers and I have so many dreams, but never in our lifetime have we dreamed think about dreaming about breathing fresh air. I'm sure the adults and the government is doing their best to get rid of air pollution. But until then, please protect us. Maybe before we fought for terrain, but in future we'll be fighting for our waters to drink and our air to breathe. So I'm not asking you, but telling you not to fight for today, but for tomorrow. I have a suggestion to my government. I want them to protect us from the air pollution by increasing the air pollution in the indoors. Since we have so many air pollutions in winter, please give us free masks. It won't do much, but it will at least protect us a little bit. Also, I appeal to my peers to love the earth for our future, even when you're in the situation of migration. So now, my friend Luis from Chile will tell you more about migration issues.
Muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Luis Miranda, tengo 17 años y vengo de Chile. Pertenezco a una red de niños de Chile, Reopción, y soy el representante de Red NIAS, Red Latinoamericana y Caribeña por la defensa de los derechos de los niños. Red NIAS está integrada por 9 países de la región y fue creada en el año 2001.
Good afternoon. My name is Luis Miranda. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Chile. I belong to a network of children and adolescents in Chile, RIA Opción, and I am representative of Red NIAS. That is a network of children and adolescents of Latin American and Caribbean for defense of the rights that has been working since 2001.
Nos reunimos periódicamente para saber cuáles son las situaciones que viven nuestros países y qué hacemos al respecto en el marco de los derechos y los ODS. He sido elegido por mis pares para representarlos y compartir aquí nuestra preocupación sobre la migración que existe en la región.
We meet periodically to learn about children's human rights situation in our countries and what we can do in the CDG frameworks. I have been elected by my colleagues to represent them and share with you our concern about migration in the region.
Tratar el tema de migración surgió en nuestra red, ya que es algo que está afectando a muchos países de la región. La situación que vive la niñez en contextos de migración es alarmante, ya que esta puede llevar a la violación de sus derechos, como lo son no poder asistir a las escuelas, riesgos a la salud e integridad física, y romper lazos emocionales con familias y amigos.
We started to talk about migration because it is a situation that is affecting many of our countries. The situation of childhood in the migration context is alarming. This may cause the violation of children's rights as they cannot to go to the school, their health and integrity are at risk, and they break affective ties with family and friends.
Es por esto que creemos que los estados tienen al menos 2 obligaciones. 1. Abordar con prontitud y eficacia las causas que fuerzan a las personas a migrar, como por ejemplo lo son la violencia, el crimen organizado y la pobreza. Segundo, trabajar en conjunto para solucionar los problemas de la niñez migrante, así como crear mecanismos para regularizar su situación en los países receptores, o al menos que puedan asegurar que permanezcan junto a sus familias en todo momento.
For this reason, we believe that the state have at least 2 obligations. Confront with the promptitude and efficacy the causes of forced migration, for example, the violence, organized crime, and poverty. To work together to give solutions to child migrants, especially inside the residing countries. They need to create mechanisms for regulating migration status, or at least they have to ensure children remain with their families all the time.
Asimismo, nos parece importante destacar que los niños, niñas y adolescentes requerimos un espacio formal y oficial para poder participar y dar nuestra opinión. Y es así que queremos que se lleven en sus recuerdos y sus memorias una idea muy importante, que es nada de nosotros sin nosotros.
By the way, for us it's very important to highlight that children and adolescents need a formal and official space for participate and give our opinion. This evening, I want to leave you with one very important idea. Nothing about us without us.
Ahora les dejo con mi compañera Rosalinda, quien hablará sobre participación.
Now I leave our college the floor. Now I leave the floor to my colleague Rosalinda, who is talking about participation.
Hello everyone, I'm Roslinda, a young leader from World Vision Indonesia, and I'm 14 years old. In my village, we have a child forum and I'm the president of this forum. We hold regular meetings to observe children issues in our village. Every year, we have opportunity to join annual village development planning meeting with village government. Every child has a right to participate. If the government want the world free from violence, they should involve children. Why? Because the main target of ending violence against children is a child, therefore, the voice of children should be heard. One of the examples of violence against children is a child marriage. My friend Lita Boho from Lesotho will speak about child marriage.
Hello everyone, I'm Dita Buha. I'm 17 years old. I'm from Lesotho. Today I want to share with you the information about child marriage. Child marriage is a horrific form of violence that violates the rights of children and further deprives them from their rights such as education, health, and development. In Lesotho, child marriage is at 24%. The girls in my community that engage in child marriage is due to poverty in the families whereby they have to be married to other people so that the family can get the dowry to make living. Secondly, they engage in child marriage because sometimes the schools are so far from home that on the way from home to school, they meet this man who perpetrates them into marriage. And this form of violence affects children so much. For instance, my friends who have engaged in child marriage are now experience more poverty now because they can no longer, their parents no longer provide for them. They engage in child labor, whereby they work as domestic workers to provide living for their families, since they now hold the responsibility of being breadwinners. Secondly, my friends who have engaged in child marriage have less opportunities in the future because they drop out of school. Because most schools in Lesotho do not allow married girls because they are said to be a bad example for others. So this affects them so much because they have less opportunities, as better paying jobs in Lesotho are those provided by the government. So they have to be educated in order to work there. So, however, even though we have this form of violence, we have children's community, which I'm a member of. We are working very hard to end this form of violence against children. We hold community workshops whereby we talk to children about child protection issues and tell them how to protect themselves. We are trying to disperse this information of ending violence against children. We also have the laws such as Child Protection and Welfare Act 2011, which protects children's rights. However, I wish this law could be enacted. The government should speed up this enactment in order to include child marriage issues because it lacks information about child marriage. It contradicts with this law of Marriage Act, which allows the marriage of a girl child at 16 and above. So I believe because a child is somebody at the age of below the age of 18, I believe they should include the information that child marriage is illegal whenever somebody under the age of 18 is married. So there are so many forms of violence all over the world. It's not a matter of statistics, because even if 1 in 1,000 children is violated, we are talking of somebody's life. So I wish we can end child marriage now, not in the future. Thank you.
Again, now. I'm participating in this event with my fellow friends. But many other children back in my home Mongolia, Asia, Africa, or even American children haven't heard anything about children's rights. So my peers and I are asking you to involve us more into promoting and protecting children's rights. I hope we delivered our message to you and you listen to us. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias a todos.
Terima kasih.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your wonderful message. And I just want to quote, it's not a matter of statistic. One child is really, too much. The other, nothing for us without us. This is very important and really wonderful, and many, many thanks to remind us that children really are the best to defend their rights. And I will turn to UN agencies. And I just want to remind you that I want to make this panel more interactive. And please, if you could limit your intervention to 4 minutes to allow a better interactivity. And first, I am turning to Mrs. Henrietta Fore, Executive Director of UNICEF, on the topic of children in the SDGs. And my question will be, all the SDGs under review at the high-level political forum this year have a direct impact on the lives of children. How do you see the interconnection between achieving these SDGs and children's rights? How does addressing all forms of violence against children support achievement of the 2030 Agenda? Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we are delighted to be here, and thank you very much for your report. It is extremely important to keep the promise. And thank you all. These are wonderful voices. They are voices of courage, of strength, of clarity, and it's great to have you here. So as you can understand from UNICEF, we believe that in all of the SDGs, children are running, playing, dreaming, and worrying throughout them, so that they should be at the heart of all of the SDGs. Let me mention 3 things to be very quick. 1, what do we hear from adults and parents? We hear that violence at home disrupts the ability of young brains to really form properly. So this is in the youngest children. Then as they grow up, it leads to developmental delays and stress-related health problems, so that as they grow older, heart disease, substance abuse, and depression can be seen. Then second, what do we hear from young people? Well, you've just heard from these young people, but one of the things that we hear is that their greatest fear is that of violence. And it is violence in schools, at home, online, in their communities, and on their way to and from school. School-age children say that it is physical and verbal abuse, harassment and bullying by teachers as well as by other students that they are worried about. It is the most common reason why they dislike school. And when they dislike school, it means that they may stop attending altogether. Then third, what do we hear from the humanitarians? For children living through conflicts, the situation is quite dire. 1 in 3 of these children are out of school, and those who are in school often face daily journeys that are very dangerous. It leaves them vulnerable to violence, predators, recruitment to armed groups, and unexploded ordnance. School buildings are vulnerable to attack and for use for military purposes. So all of this tells us that if children don't gain an education because of violence or conflict, how can their countries grow? How can their economies and their lives be shaped? How can there be peace and prosperity in the years ahead? So thus, let us all really celebrate the importance of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. At 30 years old, one of many anniversaries, at 30 years old, it is venerable, and it gives us a set of rights that all of these young people carry with them. But our responsibility, our role for the next 30 years must be to realize these rights and to make this next decade a decade of progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henrietta. I would like to turn to Mrs. Stefania Giannini, Assistant Director General for Education, UNESCO, on the topic of equitable and quality education for all children. My question is, the high-level political forum is reviewing SDG 4 this year, and it target to ensure all children have access to safe learning environments? In what ways does violence in children's lives compromise their education? And how can we most effectively ensure safe learning environments? Many thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for inviting us to take part in this section, which is focusing on a very important issue, violence against school. I want to say, also after these really touching speeches from young people we heard, that violence in some way is really the antithesis, the contrary of education. Education is not only transmitting knowledge, of course, it's important to do that, but education is more than this, in my view, building, our own personality, fulfilling talent, and all the potential that young people have, and that can make them adult citizens and giving to them health and well-being conditions of life. Violence is exactly destroying this kind of condition. So it's quite important to address this topic as one of the main obstacles to SDG 4, to quality inclusive education for all. Short time, to cut it short, I wish to focus on two dimensions of violence against school and education. And both of them are extreme violations of children's right to education. The first one is already mentioned by Henrietta before, are attacks against education, attacks against school, against teachers, against universities, and this is really something which can become it's already becoming a big threat for all of us who are working to assure right education to all children in the world. You know very well, as a special, envoy for this topic of the Secretary General. And all the regions of the world, from the south to the north, from east to west, unfortunately, been affected from this problem. According to the Global Coalition to Protect Education from Attack, between 2013 and 17, attacks on education are more than 21,000 students and teachers in more than 70 countries. So it's a big issue. And it's also very relevant that the education goal includes a specific indicator now to measure and to have a clear mapping of all this kind of data. And this is the first step to give an answer to the second part of your question. How can we address? We must know better, and then we have tools to find solution. And we also see another very important dimension to address this topic and to find new measures and find solution, which is the political commitment which is around partnership between us. The Safe Schools Declaration, signed now by 91 countries, is something that can really help to give some important answers and to protect students, teachers, and schools in the world. The second aspect I would like to highlight is school violence and bullying. This is something which is already touched by Henrietta. We have a strong coalition about this topic. We also had the pleasure yesterday to attend the Safe to Learn campaign side event. And about that, I think that we have bad news and good news. I'll start with the bad news. Bad news is that it's a problem widespread all around the world. And the UNESCO Global Report we released last year, Behind the Numbers Ending School Violence and Bullying, demonstrates that covering 144 countries, we can see that unfortunately 1 in 3 students have been bullied by their peers at school at least once in the last month. That means that it's really a big issue, this one too. And of course, the effect is a negative one because it's an obstacle to learning and an obstacle to training. So, what we can do to address these kind of issues and what we can do to give solutions. And first of all, I think that the good news of the report is that we see that when countries do adopt an integrated approach and they use measures which can not only top-down processes in terms of policies, but they involve the community, families, parents, and empower students about this topic, then you see that the numbers decrease. And this is something that we get to develop in this direction. And finally, key word, we mentioned many times in these 2 intensive weeks at the UN headquarters about SDG 4, partnership is crucial to address violence against schools. I want to mention one specific project we are running together with UNICEF and Plan International in 3 countries, Cameroon, Senegal, and Togo. And it's about working within and outside school to strengthen legal frameworks, codes of conduct, raise awareness within schools and in the wider community through training programs about all the issues that also has been touched by the young people from Lesotho, for instance, child marriage and early pregnancy, something that can become another form of violence against children and against education. So thanks to better data, policy, and partnership, I think that we can do these numbers decrease and give right to education to all these children, as the lady said before.
Thanks you very much, Stefania. Unfortunately, ILO had just arrived. And I want to welcome Beata Andries, Chief of the Fundamental Principle and Rights at Work Branch ILO, to comment on the topic of ending child labor. And the question is, child labor is one of the most obvious forms of violence against children, and SDG 8 has a specific target relating to ending in all its forms. How is Alliance 8.7 working to supporting achievement of this target? The floor is to you. Sorry for making a...
Actually, it's my turn to apologize, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to convey very warm regards from the Director General of the ILO, Guy Ryder, who unfortunately couldn't be with us here tonight and asked me to represent him. So it's a pleasure, and thank you very much, really, to the Special Representative for including us in this discussion, because we believe that the focus on child labor and the economic issues as well as social issues that are associated with this problem are very important in this discussion. And in your objective also to put children at the heart of the 2030 agenda. I wanted to start with actually an image which takes us back 100 years ago, in 1919, when the ILO was founded at the end of the First World War. When you try to travel back in history 100 years ago, you will see girls and boys in spinning mills, and it would be a normal picture to see. And you would see girls and boys in the spinning mills and in many others, in the fields, in the mines, suffering under highly abusive and exploitative and violent conditions. Now, fast move forward to today. When you go into garment factories, it will be very difficult for you actually to find girls and boys under the legal working age. They still are there, no doubt, but there has been tremendous progress in addressing child labor and in succeeding in getting children out of especially dangerous working conditions, at least in the formal sector. However, and I think you all expect the but, otherwise we wouldn't be here, according to our latest estimates, which we have produced 2 years ago, there are still 152 boys and girls in child labor, more than half of them in conditions that are what we call the worst forms, dangerous conditions, highly exploitative conditions. And what we do see today is that the majority of them are in what we call the informal sector, in very low-tier supply chains, in agriculture, family-based business, often in economic units or enterprises which struggle to just keep afloat, in families which struggle just to keep alive. So we have a major challenge ahead of us in addressing those, in reaching those 152 million girls and boys, but also addressing the underlying root causes, economic root causes, as well as social root causes of child labor. Today, I also came with the, I think, very good news that the ILO, at its centenary conference last month, adopted a new international treaty against violence and harassment in the world of work, with overwhelming majority. This treaty, of course, also applies to children of legal working age, those above, on average, 14, 15, 16 years old. And we very much hope that member states will quickly ratify the new convention and put protection measures in place to prevent and eradicate violence and harassment in the workplace, which, as we know, often affect, in particular, young people. And the last thing I wanted to share with you tonight, and I know I've been asked to be very, very brief, is a quick word about the alliance for which we are the Secretariat, but of course which brings the UN agencies together, the mandate holders, the Alliance 8.7 to eliminate child labor, forced labor, human trafficking, and modern slavery, which has now more than 200 organizational partners. It has more than 20 countries that are firmly standing behind the alliance. Many of them have declared themselves pathfinders, a term we often use now under the SDG agenda. We have been able to connect with a number of business networks to include the private sector in those efforts. And really important companies have come on board, in particular with a focus on supply chains, but also preventing child labor and exploitation and slavery in the context of crisis or in the context of migration. All these issues have moved high up on the agenda, not only of governments, but also of the private sector. And of course, another important stakeholder group of the alliance are NGOs, workers' organizations, those who give a voice to the children, to those families that are affected still by child and forced labor and human trafficking. So we come here with an invitation. We would like to invite you to join the alliance if you're interested. There are many ways to engage, both at the global level as well as at the country level. And we would also like to thank the special representatives and your office and all our UN partners for moving this agenda forward, because we do believe that indeed children have to be at the center of the 2030 agenda. They are our future, and this is not just a platitude. It is really the future of our world, and we can be the first generation that will be child labor free. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Andrews. And now I am moving to the right side of the table, and we'll be asking the representative from Indonesia, Bulgaria, and Timor-Leste to reflect on one question: what are some of the achievements or bottlenecks for children in your country since the adoption of Agenda 2030? And also, what are your government aspirations for children's rights in the next 4 years? First speaker is Her Excellency Mrs. Johanna Susana Yembise, Minister for Women Empowerment and Child Protection, Indonesia. Please.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here with you, especially the children. I think you are our future leaders. So it's good. We've already heard a lot from you. The government of Indonesia is committed to supporting the success of the SDGs 16.2, ending violence against children, by placing children as a first priority and fulfilling the most basic rights of the children. As a Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, I would like to tell you, all of you here, that the what is the population of the children? It's about 87 million. So it's a big number, very big, I think, if out of 256 population in Indonesia. And we have child protection law, and we have one of the priority program is ending violence against children, also with women. I'm doing now a kind of research study, I mean evidence-based, to find out exactly the root of violence towards children. So starting from the domestic violence in the family, because we have a very high domestic violence in the family, and then, yeah, we have to see the result of that, and then still in the process, and then see the school as well, because teachers still beat the students in the schools, and also students with students, because they imitate things or the behavior from their parents. So I'm interested in finding out why still increase of violence against children in Indonesia, and environment as well where the children are living. So those things are very important to support our priority program. And I think I mentioned already, and then Linda already mentioned some of the things we have already done. One of our program is child-friendly school, where we make sure there is no bullying, there is no smoking, drugs, and any violence, physical violence, psychological violence, emotional and sexual. So we try to make the schools become child-friendly. And I think we have about 63,800 schools across Indonesia, which we are conditioned to be child-friendly, and we keep evaluating that, whether the situation is really child-friendly or still in the process to become child-friendly. And I think the school, child-friendly schools are part of a child-friendly city, and we make sure that every child has the birth certificate, and also being registered in the government, so that we can see, the government can pay attention to fulfill their rights. And also we have children forum across Indonesia, from the central until the village level. So this forum, the role of the children here, the youths here are as a 2P we call. So become the reporter. They can report any things they see around their life. I mean, with the family, even the parents, they usually report whatever done by the family towards them, even in school as well, and report other classmates or their friends to the police office, and also to the our ministry as well. And also, I think they become the agent of change. So they're the one work together with the government. Even they attend the meeting with the government to to plan for their rights, to put in the budget plan for starting from the village level. And then the next one is eliminate child marriage, as mentioned by one of the the girls there. We also have that. This is a national issue for us. I'm in the process to increase the child marriage age, I think, to 19, because according to our child protection law, it's up to 18. After 18, then they can get married. So I'm in the process still. Maybe the letter's already on the president's desk. So I hope maybe in the near future, I think we can get what is that, agreement from the president and then the parliament to increase the child marriage. I think that's all we have already done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Mbise. I give the floor now to Her Excellency Ms. Atanaska Dimitrova Nikolova, Deputy Minister of Environment and Water from Bulgaria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dear children, Excellencies, distinguished guests, let me begin by expressing my appreciation to all the participants in this event. Their presence here is telling of their commitment to the well-being of children. I also believe it is fundamental to praise the efforts of anyone else who has contributed to the protection and promotion of the rights of children around the world, especially children in vulnerable situations. Before proceeding to the topic, allow me, Madam Special Representative, to congratulate you on the assumption of this post and to wish you much success in your endeavors. And I would like also to take this opportunity to welcome the launch of the report Keeping the Promise, Ending Violence Against Children by 2030. Violence is a major impediment to a child's well-being and obstacle to realization of their full potential. All forms of violence against children are preventable and should be condemned to the strongest possible terms. In this regard, in February 2019, the Council of Ministers of Bulgaria adopted a national program for prevention and protection against domestic violence. The document contains measures for the protection, rehabilitation, reintegration of victims of violence, as well as for control and evaluation, with a specific focus on children's violence. It is often said that we should give children a voice, but I tend to find this statement a priori false, because children already have a strong and wise voice. And the real question is whether we, politicians, are listening to what they are saying to us. And today, we really heard this strong and wise voice. Recently, on Fridays, when I am in my office at the Ministry of Environment and Water, I can hear students protesting as part of the global movement to stop climate change, so-called Fridays for the Future. And I'm pleased to see young people engaging on these issues. This is a proof that investment that we have made in environmental education, starting from the kindergarten age, is yielding results. Now, the real question we need to address is how to empower children. To name a few positive examples from Bulgaria, along with civil society participation, we also have a network of so-called regional child parliaments, as well as the program Bulgarian Youth Delegates to the UN, which enables 2 representatives of Bulgarian youth to address the UN. Usually they consult up to 1,000 young people about the challenges they are facing and share the results before the General Assembly. This year we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Convention of the Right of the Child. In this regard, Bulgaria and Pakistan co-facilitated the modalities resolution for the commemoration in inclusive and transparent process of consultation among member states. The CRC has played a crucial role on the global scale with regards to child protection, including in Bulgaria, where it led to a series of legal acts. The normative framework resulting from the convention deepened the individual approach and established children at the center of sustainable state policy, which is visible among the priorities of our first membership in the Human Rights Council 2019-2021, as well as the agenda of the Bulgarian presidency of the Council of the EU during last year. Among the broader rights of the child agenda, I would like to reaffirm the importance Bulgaria attaches to the process of deinstitutionalization and the rights of children with disabilities. In this vein, in the years following the adoption of the Agenda 2030, we have been committed to promote exclusive education of children with disabilities on national and international level as one of the main priorities of the Bulgarian human rights policy. The same principle applies to the children deprived of parental care, where we have started to engage the adopted the policy of the deinstitutionalization. Considering Bulgaria's role as co-chair of the Group of Friends of Children and SDGs, we plan to remain highly involved in advocating the linkages between the two. In this regard, the three co-chairs have presented on their behalf a voluntary global pledge for every child, every right. The pledge provides an opportunity for all of us to demonstrate our commitment to children's rights and to pursue the SDGs in line with the principles enshrined with the Convention of the Rights of the Child. Therefore, we call upon member states to endorse this document. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Ms. Dimitrova Nikolova, sorry for the pronunciation. And now I give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Dinora Suzet Jimenez Granadero, Commissioner of Children's Rights, Timor-Leste.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to share some achievement of Timor-Leste since implement or adopt agenda of 2030. First, we have established a commission of child rights to advocate all child rights in Timor-Leste, because we also ratified the Convention of the Children. We also have developed our 5-year National Action Plan. This is adopted by line minister, but we need to recognize that implementation is too slowly. This is the situation real we face in Timor-Leste. The another issue is we have boys and girls attend primary education at almost equal rate, because in Timor-Leste education is free for all children. We also have like 16.4% of children under 5 years, they birth registered. This is based on our census 2015. We continue to improve infant mortality rates and breastfeeding, because also one is we face in our country. This is the problem we face until now. This way we develop the program to increase this issue. Because we also have problem with nutrition. We have our national nutrition strategy in Timor-Leste. This is developed by Minister of Health. In our country, to protect children, we establish a referral network in all districts to monitor for children when they have a problem like victim, we can refer them to the court or another assistant like health or some shelter. We also have a unit we call unit of minor prosecute. This is in Minister of Justice to represent children when they have a problem. We also, in our national police, we established one unit we call vulnerable person unit. This is specific for attendant victim, children and women. because we need to put them separate with the another case because they need like special treatment for this issue. In our country, to facilitate children to one, we have a program like Mother Pocket. This is to helping mother to send their children to the school. And another, we introduced a program budgeting, improving transparency and accountability to providing the evidence that the government need to make informed policy decision to to help in government when they plan, they do planning and also for budgeting. What inspired of the government based on our constitution in section 18, we have our government already have one section for child protection. This is what inspired government to put to protection children and the right children in our constitution. We want our children to be healthy, happy, and contribution in our nation. To do this, we need to address our challenges and ensure we focus our attention on our most pressing issue. This issue, we focus in malnutrition and quality and education. As you know, that this is very important for increased children participation in our nation. Our aid government program, they put children as the right and special protection by the family, the community, and state, particularly against all form discrimination, violence, oppression, sexual abuse, and exploration. The child enjoy all the rights that are universal recognized, as well as those that they're in international convention as Timor-Leste also ratified, regularly ratified and approval in our state in 2003. All children born in our of wedlock enjoy the same rights and same social protection. This is why we still focus in future. Now we focus in the do advocacy to our parliament, because now we pending the parliament pending our law children protection or also child labor law is still in parliament. We hope that in this year parliament will approve in this in law, and we will do best our work to protect children in Timor-Leste. Respond to this, we also have another program. We would like to establish the Center for Education for Child Conflict with Law, because this is important. Because when we say that children is our future, we need to have good education, and also sometimes we know that sometimes children also conflict with law, but we need to have some specific place to educate them to become good children in future. Children in the heart of 2030 agenda is the key of our agenda today. I would like to continue call for action to make it happen. Government, development partner, civic society, and everybody to work together to achieve all the goals of SDG. I continue call for more support for all of the development actors in Timor-Leste to helping Timor-Leste government to put children will not left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will bring the perspective of civil society organization working to end violence against children, and Ms. Daniela Buducea is Vice President of World Vision and also representing the CSO Forum on Ending Violence Against Children, which is a coalition of 15 major civil society organizations. My question is, how has the space for civil society organization participation evolved since the adoption of 2030 agenda? And what are some of the good examples of civil society alliances / government collaboration for children? You have the floor, Daniela.
Thank you very much, Special Representative Najid Malamjid. It is a pleasure to have you, and congratulations again on your nomination. Thank you for inspiring us. At least these days, we met in several events, and it was a pleasure to see your energy. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear children, I think for us as organizations working for children, it is just natural to come together and to form alliances, and we have been doing so, working together, even advocating for the adoption of the Agenda 2030, and we have played a role in making sure that violence against children was part of this agenda from the beginning, because we have been recognizing how important it is for the Sustainable Development Goals in general, that they do include a component that has to do with preventing and ending violence against children. And because of this strong tradition, we have strengthened our alliances as part of the 2030 agenda, and this is why I'm standing in front of you today representing the Civil Society Forum that is supporting the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children. And it's also actively engaging in monitoring the progress and achieving the violence against children related targets. Talking about how the space for the civil society has evolved, we are seeing clearly a very big distinction, especially when we're talking about the pathfinding countries. We are seeing how the space for the civil society coalitions has increased in some of the countries where we are working, and we were able to really contribute together with the governments in innovating together, in being able to better complement each other and to participate in the development of the needed policies and legislation. And in some of the countries, we were invited to participate in the process of drafting the voluntary national reports, and therefore were able to provide grassroots, very hands-on input regarding the participation of children, the protection of children, the representation of children in the 2030 agenda. And on the other end of the spectrum, if you will, we are seeing countries where the CSO participation in the operationalization of the commitments that were made under the Agenda 2030 is actually being reduced. The progress is limited in these countries. And there are other countries where I would say that even the space for the civil society in general has been limited and continues to be limited. There are countries where there are changes in the laws that are governing the civil society sectors, or there are changes that have to do more with the informal pressure that is being put on the civil society operations and ability to act, especially in those communities where the need is the greatest. So to conclude this part, I would like to draw two conclusions. One is that we are seeing how the gap between the champion countries and the less progressive countries is in fact increasing, and we wanted to bring this to your attention in terms of how are we ensuring that no child is left behind, because with such a gap in progress, there will be consequences, not even long term, probably medium term. And another aspect that we wanted to bring to your attention is really how critical is the political will in each of the countries to ensuring that the 2030 agenda is at the heart of the government's works and that children are being an integral part of that agenda. And because there are so many beautiful examples of how we are actually collaborating with governments, but also with regional and national coalitions. Let me just tell you that, for example, under the South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, there was a specific initiative that is called the South Asia Initiative to End Violence Against Children. And this works very closely together with the civil society organizations throughout South Asia. And it includes representation of civil society organizations and children in its governance. So that is such an example, a very positive example. Another one, if we are looking at countries like Mexico, for example, the government delegation not only has included CSO representatives, but also children representatives in the presentation of the actual report. So there are realities at both ends of the spectrum. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniela. And here I want to invite intervention around the table, and I have just two interventions that were asked. I will give, but really very, very briefly, to Erna Christine Blondal, Director General, Ministry of Social Affairs, Iceland, and just to let us time to have interactive discussion, please.
And thank you for organizing this important event. Special thanks to Bulgarian Permanent Mission and for giving me the floor. I am honored to deliver this intervention on behalf of the Icelandic Minister for Social Affairs and Children, Ásmundur Einar Daðason, who unfortunately could not be present here today. The Icelandic government is strongly committed to ensuring the rights and well-being of children. Since Minister Daðason took office, he has placed great emphasis on ensuring that children are put in forefront of all policy making. The Icelandic government is now united in reforming the welfare system, aiming to realize a world where no child lives in violence or maltreatment. In that journey, Minister Daðason wants not only participation of children, but partnership to leadership, as so nicely worded in your report on keeping the promise. So he would have been very happy to meet those children leaders present here today, and thank you for your strong voices. So while much progress has been made, and we can be proud of so much of it, even in Iceland, this violence against children continues to be a very serious and often hidden issue. UNICEF in Iceland published recently shocking statistics on violence against children in Iceland, showing that 1 of every 5 children had experienced violence. So we have work to do. Minister Daðason would like to use the opportunity to firstly thank the former Special Representative Marta Santos Pais for her excellent work and their fruitful cooperation, and then of course congratulate Nashat Mushid, her new SRSG, on her new role. We look forward to our future cooperation, a revolution for children. Minister Daðason and the Icelandic government certainly intend to keep the promise of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, creating happy, healthy children living free from violence, and in that way investing in successful individuals for our future society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you allow me, I will open the floor, and I know that Howard and also Tanya from Council of Europe want to have some also key points, but what I suggest you, and we open the interactive, and please Howard and Tanya, you could really take the floor. The floor is open. I am tired.
Working? Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Howard Taylor from the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children. Masses have been said, and I'm going to be really brief. I think we have a historical opportunity in this chapter of history that we're in to actually end violence against children. It's the right thing to do. It's a smart investment to make. It's possible. We know enough of what works to make faster progress, and the time is now. It's the right thing to do, and we'll speak more as the year goes on about the CRC at 30, and we'll celebrate progress that has been made. But we will also look, as we've heard today, at the enormous gap that remains to be filled. And as Danielle has just been speaking about, the increasing inequality we see both within but between countries as well in progress on ending violence. We must build on that foundation that it's a right for every individual child. And we're all familiar with the horrific forms of violence and abuse and neglect that so many children around the world experience every day. But it's a smart investment to make. And as a community, I think we need a more powerful narrative backed by rigor and evidence of why investing to end violence against children, which is part of how we're going to persuade political leaders and others to make those investments, is what we as a community, I think, need to do and have that narrative. It's possible. I won't go into all the solutions because you know better than I do, and we've had some good examples today, even from the youth in the room. It's great to have you all here speaking powerfully about some of the things you see that need to happen and suggesting things that can be done to end different forms of violence against children. So thank you for your contribution. And the historical moment we're in is not just this year of 2019 with the HLPF, the review of the SDGs in September, the CRC at 30. It's more than that. There's something bigger, I think, beginning and bubbling away in civil society more broadly, but we need to take the momentum out of this year, take it into next year and beyond. And I finish just by saying, adding my welcome to all the others, to Dr. Neda. It's fantastic to have you in this role. It's great to have you on your energy. And we look forward to working with you and your office and with all the partners in this room and beyond to make this happen. This time next year, we'll be sitting in rooms saying, we have 10 years to go. We have 10 years to go to get to zero by 30. And I don't think any of us as adults in the room want to be around in 2030 when we're looking back and saying, we had a historical opportunity, a lot of things were aligning, we could really make progress, and you know what? We dropped the ball, we didn't make it. So let's, as adults in the room, commit, and I certainly do on behalf of the Global Partnership, that we will do all we can to make this happen for the children of today, but all the children who will come through over the coming years. Thank you.
I just want to, if you allow me to react, I am here since 2 weeks, and but I am used to work with children since many years in my country and in others. But what appears to me, if we really what it's appeared to me is that many actions are going on, many alliances, many coalitions, many strategies, many movements, strong visibility provided to children. And at the same time, you are facing remaining forms of violence that are still there. And we are facing increasing and new trends of other forms of violence. And my question is, and also we, as you were telling, and to be very frank, we have also some states that are really supporting children and children's rights within their national policies and within the global agenda, but we have also, we saw and we feel that we have a pushback. And we really, it's very important to see, and the challenge as you are highlighted, and we, when we are discussing also with children, how we can really be innovative and maybe put our logo and ego behind the door and really to push more and to be more also accountable and to have a kind of self-criticism where we can do better. This is, I think, if we lose this opportunity, I think it will be very, very, very bad. And this is really, I have no solution for the moment, but what it seems for me, and I heard about what you were telling regarding South Asia, regarding Council of Europe, regarding maybe the regional level, it's important to push, and mainly the country level. And I think one main opportunity is pathfinding country, but also bringing it and putting bridge with what is going on through the other alliances. And also, I think, just to answer to the question of this, I am going not to pronounce your name because I pronounce it very bad and I am so sorry. But just when you were asking when we are going to act, I think you start going to act. The question is how we are going to deal as adults, as responsible, really, with what you are asking for, what you are proposing, and also how we can make us more accountable, and also how we can build on this movement. This is really the question to all of you, and I hope that the floor is going to be more interactive. We have time. Please.
I don't normally make speeches because I'm just a member of the Secretariat at the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. So I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that in the Council of Europe we have 47 member states, and we have done a lot of work in particular on sexual violence against children. And this is not an easy subject because it's a bit of a taboo in many places. And what we found that actually really works is to get the data out first. And for example, we ran a pilot project in Cyprus, and at the beginning everybody's saying, oh, you know, it's not 1 in 5 children here in Cyprus, that's not right. And then we partnered with universities and we found out it was actually in Cyprus 1 in 4. And when you had 1 in 4 out there as a number that, you know, was authoritative, that was the moment where the political commitment then, that was such a shock to the system, it really worked. And now Cyprus is the first country outside of the Nordic region which has the Icelandic Barnahus model. And so it shows you that, you know, within a space of about 5 years, you can go a long way if you're willing to basically, you know, attack it. So I would say we have 10 years. We shouldn't wait 10 years. We should start now because then in 5 years we might get somewhere.
I just wanted to say thank you for opening my question into how, but my question for when is still open. If any of you have the answer, please give me the answer whenever you want. But yes, but yes, like how can you do that is really important. And I want to ask one question. We have this book in front of us, and there's this thing that says keeping the promise, ending the violence against children by 2030. Since you used the word ending, I believe that you saying that like making a big difference, right? But I'm so sorry, but what if you don't make difference? What if there's still violence against children by the end of 2030? What will you do then? I want to ask that. And I really wanted to say sorry for my speech because I did some last minute change in it, and I didn't really think it was good. I'm so sorry.
No, I just couldn't resist not contributing my 2 cents worth, but we are in a historical moment, and yesterday we had an incredible meeting of representatives of faith-based organizations from various parts of the world, and it was all about children's rights, and it's about how to mobilize religious leaders and faith communities. I think I'm taking advantage of the fact that we have government representatives here to say, please work with faith communities, with religious leaders in your countries. They have extraordinary outreach. And right now we're working on a multi-religious study on the CRC 30 years later and looking at what they've done over the years. And a lot of them can do a lot more. Let's push them. Let's get them engaged. And this is what I wanted to say. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Najid, for yesterday, Majid, because I had you running and you were there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm from the Global Initiative to End Corporal Punishment of Children. Thanks so much for representing our figures in your report. We track every country that has prohibited corporal punishment. I'm glad to say that your figures are already out of date from when we gave them to you, because 2 more countries have taken the step to pass legislation just recently in France and Kosovo. And I do agree with what Howard had said about investment. Clearly, we really do need to invest in this issue, but for those of you who were at the opening session of the forum last week, to remind you of the Vice President of ECOSOC's comments that strengthening legislation on child protection is a low-cost, high-yield step to take. It's so important that we have the legal frameworks in place in order to protect children, and we can build on the laws once they're in place. Thank you.
Thank you for this chance of speaking. On the agenda of the SDG 2030 goal, the SDG goals, it said that we leave no one behind. And I think while we're trying to promote child participation, I think we as children are more left out from the count level, whereby the parents and the elders vote for the government. I think that leaves us behind because most of the time when children comment, they say, okay, we want this, we are allowed to participate, but the government poorly implements. My opinion is, why don't the countries implement this thing whereby maybe children from the age of 15 and above are allowed to vote so that our voices can be heard. Or else we should have a child representative in the national parliament, because I think if we have someone of our age, they can talk about our challenges better than adults do. Thank you.
I want maybe to, the question were not only for me regarding about 2030, but I want to jump on the agenda, and where is she? Okay, I will wait because she will tell me again when. No, I was to jump regarding your last question about child participation. And I think really it's important, child participation, and we have many actors here, is not a kind of exhibit show or a one-stop that has to be parallel to the system. The main challenge is how we can really ensure that child participation is mainstreamed, and it is from the beginning until the implementation and assessment. This is one. The other point, child participation means also to have a strong representativity and also to be sure that the most vulnerable people, children, that the most invisible children in the most remote areas really are heard and listened. This is very important. And I think that it's at the country level when we can do a lot. And I think it will be useful, and you have many civil society organizations and government, and just Daniela was highlighted the fact that in some countries you have child representative, you have civil society organizations that are in the governance body. This is very important. They are part of the policy making decisions. This is very important. I think this we could also share and show what is going on in some countries. This is one. Regarding the question you were asking about, Rebecca, and many things, and I really enjoy what is going on regarding faith-based organization, taking into account what is going on worldwide and the spread of extremism and the pushback regarding human rights and children's rights. And I think what is important is also how we can also share what is going on and to have a kind of really ongoing information and to build bridges, but not only what was successful, but also have the courage to assess the bottlenecks and also to see how we can, in a practical way, deal with and maybe try to overcome. This is important. And just for your question, and I'm not going to answer why in 2013, I was not there when the agenda, and I was not a state member. But what I want to tell you, at this time, I was special rapporteur on sale of children, child prostitution, and child pornography. And Marta Santos Pais, myself, CRC, the previous representative on children in armed conflict were pushing, and many civil society organizations were pushing to be sure that children's rights will be part of these SDGs. Because the main issue currently, because SDGs were normally more about development, but we were pushing and to be sure that development, protection, peace, inclusion are really a kind of global framework, and children has to be at the heart. But I think also, because you are child rights defenders, and you are going to come back to your country, and your country made this statement, and they commit themselves to realize. And I think it's important also to make sure that your voice are heard, and also to be sure to advocate on this issue. Here we are at global level, we are going to do it, but if we need things change, we need to be sure that many movements are going on at grassroots level. This is very important. But I think you have to ask. We are asking your government, but you have also to ask your government. This is very important. But please, could you interact, because I feel the only one who is accountable today. No, it's not normal, please.
Yes, before I was speaking on behalf of the ministers, I can speak now on behalf of myself. Because I'm here with my daughter in New York, and she's been in and out of meetings. She's 7. And she's actually, because it's so interesting to hear about how, when can young people and children elect their representatives, and how are we actually going to do it? Because she said to me after a whole day of meeting, and it seemed all very, very important, like, how do you help children? You're just sitting in meeting and working on computers. And it was just such a interesting, and everyone at the table, like very high levels, we are helping. We are telling the lower levels what to do. And it was so funny to see the ministers, and she was just like, I'm not buying it, 7-year-old and already, But I think that maybe we're hitting the nail on the head, that we actually have to go closer to the children, to the families, to encourage not only the child, but supporting families and looking at it as a bigger picture. And that's how we need, because human rights and children's rights are being realized very, close in the municipalities, within the, like you were talking about, religious groups and others. It's in Iceland we have sports, very important. Children that go into sports, they are much less likely to go into alcohol and drug abuse, and so we have that. That's a very important part, and we actually have an issue there now, because children of different nationalities and not immigrants, and they're not participating as much as Icelandic children. It's creating an unbalance. So we need to go, I think, maybe it's the Icelandic approach where everyone knows everyone and we're very small, but I think we need to get into the grass, get into the closer to the families, and not because we can say everything we want here, high up, but the 7-year-old is going to call us out eventually. Like, what actually are you doing? Thank you.
Just I want to tell you that I totally agree, because I am a pediatrician and I am used to work at grassroots level, but we need also to have a kind of differentiation between levels. And I think what it's important when state members committed, Here you have the delegation, but what is going on, and Daniela was highlighted it very strongly, that how they can put the Agenda 2013 in their national policies. This is important. And what appears that we have many ways. You have the pathfinder countries, you have alliances, you have many things. The way is how we can ensure that at country level, civil society organization, faith-based organization, community organization, children themselves, parliamentaries that are very important, and institutional, national institution of human rights. This is very important to make sure that are on the board and pushing on this issue. You have the regional level that also is very, very important because it's allowed to share some and to make state also more competitive. And here we are at global level, and global level is more about a very strong advocacy level to be sure that visibility of children is there, to push and to make sure that we are not, because just you know that we are currently assessing the implementation of SDGs. And we need also, as all of us, to provide some very key and strong elements regarding the assessment, because it's important that you will have the big meeting on September, and you will have all president and head of government that will be there. And I think really we need to provide key and strong elements, and also to arrive with a kind of roadmap. This is very important. And if we want to do that, we need to have a roadmap among ourselves also.
Thank you very much. I'd like to first start by affirming the recommendations that are in this report. And we have had a chance to sneak peek a little bit and before this meeting, and many of them are so in line with what we are seeing as civil society as being the need. And I already alluded to the need for political will and building that political will, but also there are strategies, there are ideas here that we absolutely need to look at and be very serious about. One thing that I would like to make sure that we are hearing loud and clear is that there is no competition here. And none of us can succeed without the others, really, because we are having such complementary roles, and the task at hand is huge. We are not talking about just engines that you can take one piece from here and move it in the other part. We're talking about changing attitudes and behaviors and social norms that are so deeply rooted, and yet we are living in a time when things are changing so fast because of the power of communication, because of the power of words and being able to communicate it would have been impossible to even conceive this 10 years ago, if you think about it. So how do we use the incredible technological advances to bring them to the advantage of the children? Because too many times they have hurt children, especially when it comes to protecting children from violence in the online space. So we do believe, and again, I would like to affirm, and I'm pretty convinced that I am, yes, my colleagues will agree with me, I would like to affirm the commitment of the civil society to work together with you, with the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, because this is a very serious matter and one that is urgent. And thank you very much, Nomundari, for asking that question. And that question will stay in my heart as a professional for a very long time. What if you won't be able to achieve that by 2030? And I promise that I will do my best so that we don't have to face that answer. Thank you.
If there is no more question, I can close, because I think we are a little bit tired, starting by myself. And just I want to to tell you really and very frankly, and many persons around this table knows me since many years, just that my mandate is your mandate, and is a mandate of children, really, is really a bridge, is a tool, and please use us. And we'll use you also to be sure that we can at least achieve, regarding, the SDG 16.2, that it's related to all the others. This is very important. And just to let you know, I start really having many meetings with many actors, and currently, including children, and to have an idea or to have an overview. And what we are going to do is to work more deeply and to establish a kind of roadmap, what we are going to do as mandate, and what kind of strategic alliances or what kind of common and joint action or strategy we need to build. And really, I will really rely on you, and you can rely on us in a very open and frank and sincere manner. Many, many thanks to all of you to have been there, and I am sure that I will see you very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you. I should thank individually, but I'll just skip this. I would really like to thank the four of you, and just to show that we are really committed to helping you. This evening we have only tweeted one tweet in our account, and it was a quote from you, that from now on, nothing for you without you. Thank you very much.